So, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be working through the planned webinar, the endpoint assessments, portfolio and project submissions. I'm Adam Glynn, one of the business development managers here at Highfield, and I'm joined by my colleagues Mike White from our employer engagement team and Laura Topless, the head of assessment. Both will be delivering with me part of the webinar. I'll be monitoring your questions today and bringing them into the conversation that we're having and also answering them directly as we walk through the webinar. We will endeavour to answer any questions that we don't manage to cover today. Certainly would encourage you guys to ask any questions in relation to standards that you are delivering personally. The presentation is it's a general conversation about portfolio and project submissions, so just keep those questions coming. My colleague Amy will be providing technical support throughout, so please do shout out if you're having any difficulties. Before we do start on the broadcast, I'd like to draw your attention to the top right-hand side of your screen, where you'll find a small control panel. From here, you'll be able to select audio options and type in your questions as the webinar progresses. I'll aim to answer all questions submitted at the end of the webinar again. I'll come back to and we will try to get round everyone as we walk through the presentation. You'll also see that there's a facility to raise your hands. Please use this if you experience any technical issues during the webinar, such as if you're unable to hear me or see the presentation slides. Again, the technical support's provided by Amy, and luckily for you guys, not me. So she'll pick up any issues there. Once we've finished the webinar, there'll be a short survey. If you'd please spend a little bit of time to answer those questions, I'd certainly appreciate it. You will need to wait for a few seconds before the survey pops up. However, do complete that and provide us with any feedback, as it's a really important tool for us to ensure that we're meeting your needs and expectations. It will also help us to shape what we do next and what we cover in the future as well. So please do let us know. So I'm going to walk through the first few slides. So let's get started with this. If there are any noises in the background from any of the team that are presenting today, please do bear with us. We are all at home. I've got a small daughter who may pop up, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that we're all with our families at this time. So what we're covering today, so we're going to give you a small overview of Highfield Assessment. So if there's anyone on today that doesn't currently use Highfield, we'll give you a bit of a feel for where we are and where we're going with EPA. We're going to run through some details on Highfield supporting materials, our EPA kits and think about documents. The main subject of the conversation is hints and tips for submitting a portfolio. So this is all about what's a portfolio for EPA, acceptable formats of documents and using a matrix. So relatively simple stuff, but relatively easy to get wrong. So just a bit of shared experience there. Hints and tips for submitting a project. So what is a project for EPA? Again, acceptable formats and documents that may be submitted, and different types depending on the standards delivered. And there'll be a bit there at the end on how to actually submit the portfolio or project to Highfield. So the kind of systems that we currently use and accept, and the document submission process. So it will be me to begin with. I'll hand over to Laura Toplis, who is our head of assessment, and then we'll then be joined by Mike White to go through the final bits. Okay. So, as you are probably aware, Highfield Assessment is an approved assessment organisation. We've been delivering EPA since our first assessments back in 2017. As you can imagine, it's been a hell of a journey to get to where we are now, and obviously times, given the circumstances, are proving to be more challenging as the weeks go by. Certainly with social distancing and the adverse effects that it may be having on our employers. If there's any need for any support around how we can overcome some of your challenges right now in relation to assessment, please do let us know. When you get to the final bit where we do the survey, if you want any of our team to give you a call post the webinar, please do give us a shout out. We are approved for 40 standards now, so that's a range from an awful lot of sectors. We're led by our employers and providers as to where you want us to go in terms of the standards that we cover. So that's 40 and counting. We do have planned further applications. The beauty is that we'll continue to develop our range and add standards where they fit into the sectors that we currently work on or work with. And this is an interesting statistic. So we've completed assessments for over 6,000 apprentices so far, which is an awful lot of employers and apprentices to have the privilege of working on behalf of. So really today is an opportunity for us to share some good practice and some experience of what we have done with those 6,000 apprentices over the last 2 years. So I'm going to start off just by going through our supporting materials, so our EPA kits, and think about documents and show you where to locate them. As we know, and as we'll cover, the most important thing that anyone can have, whether it be you guys delivering as an employer provider, as a provider, or indeed for your apprentices, is knowledge and understanding of what our expectations are as an endpoint assessment organisation. So for each of the standards that we're currently approved to assess, we have developed our endpoint assessment kit. So an endpoint assessment kit provides you with a full overview of the standard. This includes the amplification of the assessment plan, where we've taken the actual content of the assessment plan and the standard and expanded upon that to give you very clear guidance on what we are looking to assess as part of individual assessment activities. They do cover everything from gateway, what you need to deliver as part of the apprenticeship, that amplification, a breakdown on the graded criteria from within the assessment plan. It plus also does give you a full breakdown of each assessment activity, which criteria need to be covered off per activity. Plus, we do also have our mock assessment documentation in there as well. I really would please encourage anyone to jump on the website to have a look at them. We'll show you in a second where to find them. They've been designed and are available for all parties, including the learner, and they are freely available without having to log in through the Highfield Assessment website. Mike's going to jump on there for us in a moment to show you where to find them for each standard. And I'd certainly encourage you to have a look at them. Mike, do you want to jump on that now?
Yeah, absolutely. Do apologise. So, as you can see on the PowerPoint, obviously when the slides come out as well, there will be a direct link on the slide. So please feel free to use that link. However, as Adam's just discussed there, I'll take you through the website and show you how you can download these. Now, if you have been on one of our webinars previously, we have done a very similar thing. So please accept my apologies if we are repeating what we have done previously. So if you go to highfieldassessment.com, in the orange banner on the top, if you're going to go into endpoint assessment resources, once that page loads up, you can see the different sectors that we work in, or we currently are approved to assess any apprentices in. So for this example, I'm going to use the business administrator. So if you pop into this sector on the top left-hand side, and you can see down the middle of the page, we've got the standards that fit into this sector that Highfield are approved to assess. Like I say, I'm going to use business administrator. So if you click on the standard that you're looking for, and you can see here we give a bit of a breakdown of the EPA kit. So you can download the full EPA kit itself or particular documentation, so it saves scrolling through potentially 100 different pages of the EPA kit. So if you were to go into the business administrator EPA kit, it downloads the PDF form, so you can then download this and obviously share this wherever is needed. What I would recommend is that if you were going out to see an apprentice or you were looking for the most up-to-date EPA kits, I would always recommend you use the website. These are the most up-to-date versions that we have. They do change from time to time. Any major changes will be communicated out to you as the training providers or the employer. But what I would recommend, and this is accessed probably on a daily basis, a weekly basis, depending on whenever you need this. So you can see the content in here, talks about the introduction to the standard, moves on to our Highfield approach, and then you talk about gateway readiness and all the different sectors in there. You can also see the mock assessments are in here as well. So these are very useful whenever you need them. So going back to the PowerPoint now, I'm going to pass you back over to Adam.
Thank you. I'm trying to do the impossible for a man and do more than one thing at once, just trying to pick up some questions. So if for any reason, Mike, I do go quiet, just give me a prod.
Okay, will do.
Right, okay. So thanks for showing us where you find them, Mike. It's really important that you do understand where to get them, and it's important for us to also stress that they are freely available for you and your team. Just share the links to the website and just make sure that anyone that is delivering is involved in the apprenticeship, that they understand where they can get hold of this really important information. And it's worth also mentioning that if you do come across any questions or queries on the kits themselves or specific assessment criteria or details within that kit, please do let your employer engagement manager know, or come to your BDM and we should be able to give you a helping hand with any of those questions. The worst thing that you can do is sit on something that may essentially affect an apprentice's outcome at the time that they're assessed. So that's a bit on the EPA kits. Familiarise yourselves with them. So something else that we have done, but we found to be incredibly important, and the short history to this was that we spent an awful lot of time and energy developing supporting resources for those delivering, but also needed to, once we'd nailed that bit, provide you with tools that your apprentices can use in the run-up, so to prepare for their assessment, but also during their endpoint assessment. So for each individual assessment activity, we needed to provide some additional support and guidance documents. So that's where the Think About documents come in, because they are designed to aid that learner in preparation and during the assessment. So the Think About documents are available to download as an editable PDF. So learners can use them to prepare for their assessment. It's worth noting, as it says there, that learners can absolutely take them into their EPA. They are focused on that specific assessment activity. They are designed to encourage an apprentice to really think about what is going to be asked of them, what they need to demonstrate during that assessment. So I would strongly recommend that these are introduced, that you do pick them up. My general experience so far has been for providers working with apprentices where maybe an apprentice has historically come up to assessments and they've gone in to EPA and lost their train of thought, or been overcome by the process of assessment. These really do help to refocus an apprentice's mind on the task at hand, particularly around the professional discussions and portfolio interviews, which we'll discuss today, but also key for planning any observed activity as well, or could be key for planning any observed activity. So the vision was to create Think About documents for each assessment method for all standards that were approved to assess. If you do find any out there where we haven't created them, we will, and you will be able to get a hold of them. So we'll start to, well, they will come through on the website over a period of time. So again, publicly available through the website, which Mike, are you going to direct this as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take you back through the website again, guys, so you can see where you can find the Think About documents and the ones that we do have available. So again, if you were to head to our Highfield Assessment website, using the top banner again, the EPA assessment resources, and we'll use the business admin again as an example. It's a nice, easy one to use as an example. So you can see here you're on the same page. If you were to scroll down slightly, you can see that the apprentice support guides. So you can see the different support guides we have for this sector. You can also see that there are different Think About documents per assessment method. So you can see here for the business administrator, we've got portfolio of evidence. Gives you a brief description about the portfolio of evidence and the purpose of it. It then allows you to scroll down and see the different assessment criteria, and the information in here per assessment criteria. So these are designed to help the learner, like Adam says, before the assessment, but also during. So when they are putting together this portfolio of evidence, this has been designed to help the learner, to guide them, to ensure that they're providing the correct evidence to us. If we were to open up the project presentation version, you can see here a little bit more information on the first page, but very similar again. So it's providing the criteria that the learner needs to hit in order to obviously achieve the standard. As Adam spoke about there, these documents are available online, and they are out there in the public for anybody to download. We would highly recommend that learners access these as well. Feel free to provide any links to learners should you prefer that. But yeah, so I'll pass you back over to Adam.
So yeah, the think about thanks, Mike. The think about documents do pick up. They can really actually shape the way that you help prepare your apprentices for EPA. And I've had a number of providers and employers take the EPA kits and expand on them and create additional supporting guides and documents for their apprentices as they're going through that process of prepping and then actually going through EPA with Highfield. So it's a really firm foundation for you to help out your employers and apprentices in preparation for this this assessment process. So the combined EPA kit and think about document package that you have should really kickstart your support for individual apprentices in line with the assessment plan. I'm just wondering how many times I can actually say assessment plan or apprentices in this webinar. It's probably going to sound quite repetitive, but so moving on. So what we're going to do now is
I just want to obviously point out that if you do visit our website and you do find that there are think about documents not available on there that you need, and you've got apprentices coming up to their assessments, please feel free to contact your employer engagement team. They'll be able to support you, or like Adam said, the business development team. They'll be able to support you in order to, obviously, if we can get hold of the think about documents before the learners go through assessment, or be able to support you further with them. Sorry, Adam. Please feel free to now proceed.
Thanks. Yeah, let us know if there's anything that's missing. Do give us a shout. The team are endeavouring to pull the documentation together for all standards. It may be that over the short term it will take a little bit longer given the current circumstances that we all face, but do give us a shout. So the next thing that we'll move on to now, Mike, is we're going to introduce Laura, our head of assessment, who is going to work us through the submission of a portfolio and share some experience and hints and tips on how to approach this. What I will do, I'll occasionally jump in with questions that have been asked. I can see that there are quite a few that have come through. So again, I will try to have them answered as we walk through the presentation, and yeah, keep them coming on. So over to Laura.
Okay, thank you, Adam, and thank you, Mike, and thanks to everybody for being here today. I hope you're all well, working from home. Yeah, so I've just been listening to Adam and Mike there walk through the supporting documents that we've got, and I really can't recommend them enough. But the following is just really some hints and tips that we've picked up along the way. You know, we've been assessing for over 2 years now. With the portfolios, I'd say the most popular standards that we get these on are business admin, team leader supervisor, and ops departmental manager. There are obviously some others that use a portfolio as well. And I think the important thing to just start off by saying for portfolios is it's not just kind of taking the whole on-programme portfolio and passing that over to us. Quite often there's a particular on-programme qualification that has a different set of assessment criteria or learning outcomes, and those are different to the assessment criteria that are in the assessment plan and in our EPA kit. So it's just really important to understand that when you're submitting a portfolio to us, you've really got to make sure that the evidence in the portfolio meets the assessment criteria as stipulated in the assessment plan and the EPA kit. And it's important to understand that, you know, this is a showcase of the learner's best work. I mean, I haven't worked in on-programme for a few years now, but I can imagine that there's still a hefty amount of evidence that goes into those portfolios. So again, it's about going through those portfolios and picking out the cream of the crop that, as I say, meets the assessment criteria for the assessment plan and submitting that to us. To help you and the learner understand those pieces of evidence and how to map them to the assessment criteria, we've developed a matrix, which is essentially where you would list the learner evidence that you're going to submit and cross-reference the assessment criteria that you feel that evidence meets. This is a really important exercise to do, and it will help you to, as I say, streamline that portfolio and only submit to us what is relevant for the purposes of the endpoint assessment. It will help you and the learner focus on what is needed for endpoint assessment, and it will certainly allow our assessors to better pinpoint where that evidence is, and allow the assessor to clearly see, you know, where that demonstrates competence against the assessment criteria. So Mike's just shown you the website where those matrices are. I do believe on the next slide we'll ping over to the website and again show you where that is so that you can easily locate that document. Thank you. So in terms of forms of evidence to submit, you do have a choice. You know, there are a range of types and formats of evidence that you can send to us. These are all listed in our EPA kits, so you can send us PDF documents, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, recordings. It's important that if you are submitting long documents or long recordings, and you'll see when we have a look at the matrix, it's important that you tell us the location of within that evidence of where you feel that particular assessment criteria is being met. We've had some portfolios that have had upwards of 100 pieces of evidence. Some of those pieces of evidence are 20 pages long, or recordings of over an hour. So it's really important that if you are submitting big pieces of evidence, that you are helping us to locate within that evidence where specifically you feel, you and the learner feel, that assessment criteria is being met. So Mike, if you want to take us to the website and we'll have a look at where we can get the matrix.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's the same place on the website of where you can download all the documentation. So if you were to click onto the website and go to Endpoint Assessment Resources, we'll use Business Admin as an example again. So click onto the standard that you're looking for within that sector. As you can see on the list that appears once you've gone into Business Administrator, you can see that we have a Level 3 portfolio matrix for the Business Administrator. Laura, I'm going to pass over to you just to explain a little bit more on this form that you were referring to just a few minutes ago. Is that okay?
Yep, that's great. Thank you, Mike. So basically what you see here is listed the assessment criteria as per the assessment plan and in the EPA kit. And again, this can differ to some on-programme criteria. So this is again where it's important that you understand that, you know, we are just looking at this particular assessment criteria and not any on-programme criteria. So as you can see there, Mike's editing the document. These are editable PDFs. I understand in some situations where there are several pieces of evidence, whoa, those numbers look big, you might require a Word document to fill in. I do believe we have Word documents available, and you can request one of those from the employer engagement team should you need a Word document instead of the editable PDF. But we always use editable PDFs because we tend to find that you know, that they're most widely used on different devices and things. So as you can see there is where you map the evidence reference And also you can see in the end column either the location or the page within the evidence. As I say, if it's a really long document or a long recording, it's important that we do have that. At the bottom of the document, you'll see there that it allows the apprentice to confirm that this is their evidence, and you'll also see again at the bottom underneath that the different formats of evidence that we're able to access. So there's a variety, so you can see images, PDFs, audio recordings, video recordings, PowerPoints, Excel, etc. Okay, before we move on to projects, Adam, are there any particular questions on portfolios that you want me to address?
Yeah, we've had quite a number in, and I'm just working through them now. So there are a couple from Gary. Thanks a lot for throwing these to us. So Laura, yeah, but with regards to the team leader supervisor standard, Gary's asked what would be an acceptable subject for the submission. So I'm assuming that's going to be with regards to the project.
Yeah, that sounds like they're talking about a project. I mean, I'm happy to move on to projects. Are there any portfolio specific questions that you can see?
I'm just spinning through the last few. Bear with me. Yeah, another one from Gary. So with regards to a standard where a skills criteria is to be demonstrated in a professional discussion or indeed portfolio, do they need to be videoed, or can there be written evidence? And also in the same vein, would it be okay for us to review video evidence as part of a portfolio submission?
So I'll take the first question. So yes, absolutely. Demonstrating any of the knowledge, skills and behaviours, there's not specific types of evidence that have to be submitted and reviewed. For example, just the knowledge or just the skills or just the behaviour. It's a demonstration across the board using any type of evidence that you feel demonstrates that knowledge, skill or behaviour. What I would say, and it's a good question to bring up because it's just prompted me to just kind of remind really with portfolios of evidence, particularly for team leader, supervisor and ops departmental manager, it's really important that the evidence provided actually demonstrates the learner's competence. What we sometimes get is submission of theory workbooks from on-programme learning. This itself won't be enough to satisfy the assessment criteria. You've really got to show how that learner applies that knowledge to their role in order to meet that particular criteria. And the guidance on this is in the EPA kit, which is really useful to refer to when you're putting this evidence together. So basically, yes, so even where you are looking at the knowledge criteria, if you read the EPA kit, anywhere it says there needs to be a demonstration of how this is applied to their role, it's important that that is included in there also. I'm really sorry, Adam. By the time I've rabbited on and finished, I've actually forgot the second part to the question. Can you just repeat that, please?
Yeah. So the first bit was on the video evidence. The second one was.
I think the second one was actually the video evidence. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah,
so yeah, video evidence. Fine, and it's fine to use again for knowledge, skills or behaviours. It doesn't have to be for either or. What you just need to be aware of with video evidence is just to make sure that you're happy for that bit to be submitted to us. The learner's happy to have that submitted to us, and it just needs to be really clear who the learner is. I was reviewing a piece of evidence for team leader supervisor portfolio, that showed a team briefing. And it was difficult for me. I had to kind of make a best guess and confirm with somebody who the learner was. So if you are going to submit a video or an audio, if you could just make it clear somewhere, either in a separate document, who is in that recording, and obviously who the learner is within that recording.
I think it's a really good point, and when submitting any evidence, it really does need to be very clear what the evidence is in relation to, which is why it's critical to complete the matrix when making that submission. And on the subject of the matrix, Mike, this is one for you, I think. So, can a learner's signature on the matrix be an electronic version with given present conditions, so in relation to distance learning?
Yeah, absolutely. So we would 100% accept electronic signature on them. Obviously, the current situation, it's become more apparent that we need to accept more electronic signatures all around the board. So yeah, absolutely. Please feel free to submit that way.
Fantastic.
Sorry, Adam, I do have one quick question for Laura. It's just regarding the evidence uploaded or evidence provided to Highfield. Is there a specific number of pieces of evidence that has to be provided per criteria?
I get asked that question all the time. I mean, you need to have a look. It's different for every standard, so you'd need to have a look in the assessment plan. Some assessment plans kind of will stipulate an amount of evidence that has to be provided. Some are really specific, like passenger transport and the journey log, like so many pieces of evidence have to be submitted. It's a little bit bizarre. But in ones where it doesn't stipulate in the assessment plan, you've really got to look at the number of assessment criteria as a guide, really. And what I would say is it's not always about quantity, it's about quality as well. You may have one piece of evidence that can be cross-referenced against several criteria. That's absolutely fine, as long as, like I say, in the matrix you can pinpoint where you feel that meets the assessment criteria, then that will be absolutely fine. But I'd really say be guided by the assessment criteria and not necessarily the amount of evidence that you're submitting.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Laura.
Just a note on the question, as I'm going through and picking up answers to the questions that have been posed, if you do see your question disappear off the list, it's because I'm just trying to make sure that we're not repeating ourselves as we go through. So I'm just removing those questions as we walk through the presentation. So. There are a couple of specific bits. I think what we might do is pick them up as we go along. Is there a portfolio submission required for adult care worker and lead adult care worker? So Amy, no, that is a situational judgment test and a professional discussion.
Can I just interrupt there, Adam? Sorry, it's not a portfolio for adult care, but they do have to submit a self-assessment and some witness testimonies as well.
Which you'll find at the back. It's one of the last sections in the EPA kit. So do have a good look through that. We will, of course, as you're approaching assessment with your apprentices, we will provide you with further guidance on what will need to be submitted, particularly when you're booking in the EPA. But again, this is about familiarity. This is about really getting to know and understand what we've documented in the EPA kits. It should be a really very comprehensive guide as to what's needed there. Ian, a question there about remote assessments and observations where they're done face to face. I know we've got a video call on Friday, so we'll probably pick that up then. But just to give everyone a feel for where we are at the moment in these challenging and uncertain times, to coin some phrases that have been used widely. We are exploring every option that we can with you and your employers in relation to being able to deliver on assessments. It's very much in the hands of the EQAs who oversee the individual standards as to what alternative methods of assessment can be applied to the assessment plans. We're exploring several options, so your remote observation can be potentially delivered. So there's a potential solution where it can be live streamed. Again, we'll be talking specifics, so we'll need to talk over that for anyone, for any one individual case, one individual standard with you and potentially the employer. So a couple of other things about think about documents. Are they going to be available for recruitment resource and consultant? So our team are working where we don't have them. Our team are working on them. Just drop a line to your employer engagement manager. They will be they'll make a note and approach the team that look after the actual writing and the design of them. And I think that there are an awful lot of questions coming through. So what we'll do, Laura, if we can move on to the next section, we'll try to pick up some of the others as we move on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in terms of projects then. Again, we're seeing these across a wide range of standards, so hospitality, retailer, just to name a couple there. In terms of the rules that apply for a project, it's obviously similar to a portfolio in terms of making sure that it's valid, it's authentic, it's current, and it meets the assessment criteria. So again, please do make sure that you refer to the assessment criteria in the EPA kits and use the supporting documents such as the Think About documents as well. They can be really helpful when looking at a project. In terms of projects, some are completed whilst on programme. Some have to be completed within the endpoint assessment window. This is really important that you understand and again refer to the EPA kit which one it is. We would not want to see any projects which should be done within the assessment window having been done on programme, that if it would go against the assessment plan, that wouldn't be allowed. So make sure you're really clear on whether it's a project that has to be done on programme. And again, there can be a certain time frame on programme as well that has to be done within. For example, business admin within the last 9 months on programme, that has to be completed. So just make sure you're really clear on when this has to be done. Start and submission dates. So when you book in for your learner's endpoint assessment, you'll receive a booking confirmation. This will make really clear when you can start the project, because some do have really specific time frames in terms of how long the learner has to work on the project. So again, to stick within the assessment plan, it's important that you abide by those. And again, submission dates, really important, because we will schedule our assessors literally down to the day, the hour that they actually mark the projects as well. So the submission dates, as with a portfolio, again, submission dates, really important that you stick to those. And if you feel that you're not going to meet that submission date, date, it's important that you let us know as soon as possible, because it can have a knock-on effect on the rest of the assessments that are scheduled, again, if within the assessment plan there are certain rules that apply in order to have that before doing the remainder of the assessments. So, as I say, check the specific criteria that has to be covered. You know, we only assess on the assessment criteria that are in the EPA kit and the assessment plan, no more, no less. So it's really important, again, that you stick to that and aim for that. The format of the submission, again, we recommend that you submit a PDF. A Word document is absolutely fine, because that can be transferred into a PDF, no problem at all. And as with any piece of work, as you know, valid, authentic, a written submission sheet has to be provided along with the project as well. So this is where, you know, we do ask for the learner to confirm that it is their work, and also we ask the learner to confirm what their word count is, because some assessment plans stipulate a specific word count. Where it doesn't state a specific word count, we will provide a recommendation of a word count, and again, this will be based on the amount of assessment criteria that will need to be covered. So this is to act as a guide for yourselves and help you and the learner understand just how much content is required for the project. Okay, for some standards as well, prior to submitting a final project, there may be a need to submit a proposal or a synopsis of what the learner is going to do. Again, this varies. I know we do this in hospitality, customer service specialist, and retail, to name a few there. And again, that proposal should be submitted to us within stated timescales as stated on the booking confirmation. Again, we do schedule assessors' time to review these and make sure that they're all done within the required timescales. And that's really to enable your learner to then have the adequate amount of time to then work on the final project. So again, if you feel that there's going to be any delay in getting that proposal or synopsis to us, please let us know as soon as possible, as it may have a knock-on effect for your learner. Some of the proposals usually have to be done and taken to the gateway meeting anyway. So if your learner has passed gateway and had that meeting with yourselves, then they should have that proposal to hand. I've already talked about the specific word counts and that this must be listed for us on the written submission form. And we've already talked about a date to start and submit the project, because some assessment plans do have stipulated durations to work on projects. And again, I can't refer to them enough. Please use our EPA kits and the Think About documents to help support you with completing those projects. Okay, are there any questions at all with regards to submitting projects, Adam?
Loads of them. So there are quite a few that have come through. Just one on the submission, or the actual completion of the project. So Karen's come to us with, is it the project that has to be completed in the window or the write-up? So this would be, I guess, that when we're looking at a project that has to be started, say, no earlier than 9 months into on programme. So I guess are the two there, Laura? Two questions. Is the projects that have to be started towards the end of their apprenticeship and post gateway?
Yeah, I mean, what we tend to see, but again, really important that you check each EPA kit, because every standard is just so different. But what we tend to see is where it's expected that a project will be completed on programme, obviously the write-up that's then provided to us, or that could be a presentation, for example, we would expect by that point, obviously, that the project would have been completed. If it's within the endpoint assessment window, again, please do check the EPA kit. It is different for every standard, but we can either see projects where we would expect it to be completed and submitted to us as a final write-up, but some of them may be talking about a project, implications of projects, expected outcomes, costings of projects, and so on. In which case, that might still be in its proposal stage, and what you're submitting to us as a final write-up is basically how that project would then be implemented. So it can be very different, and it varies across the standards. So it's really a case of checking the EPA kit to see which one of those it would be.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Thank you. And Karen's also asked, some projects may not be they may not be able to complete within their EPA window. So if the project is incomplete in terms of outcomes and success, how would that be perceived at endpoint assessment?
So again, it depends on each assessment plan and the assessment criteria. So if you've got assessment criteria that says, the learner can understand the outcomes and can look for future improvements, then you would need to look to do a project that would enable the learner to do that. It wouldn't really be worthwhile them doing anything that would not provide them with an opportunity to demonstrate competence against the assessment criteria. So I would say in that case, you'd need to check that that particular project would meet each assessment criteria, and that's where our mock documentation can help you as well.
Yeah, and so for example, if we had a project presentation, so where the project has been completed and then there's a chance at assessment for the apprentice to present on the process and their findings, what would happen if a learner went over the allocated time when delivering that presentation? Would the EPA stop the assessment, or would they apply some order of discretion in terms of the time allowed for that part of their EPA?
Are we talking about a specific standard here, Adam, or?
The question came in without a note of the specific standard.
Okay, well, I'll use an example then in that case. So if we take business admin, where it's expected that a project would be completed on programme, but then the actual presentation of that project is the endpoint assessment method. And that's where, we would look to assess that learner and their competence against the assessment criteria. That particular assessment method, it allows for 15 minutes for the presentation. It then allows a further 15 minutes for question and answer by the assessor. So in total, that's 30 minutes. We will chat with the learner beforehand and say, look, you need to present for 15 minutes. If we feel that you're going to go over that, we'll politely move you on. We'll give you little time reminders as well. Hopefully they would have had a bit of a practice as well to try and get that in the allotted time. But we certainly wouldn't just cut them off straight away at 15 minutes, but it would obviously get to a point where the assessor would feel that they'd need to move on to the question and answer session. So it's not kind of a really strict cut-off at 15 minutes, but obviously, the assessors do need to be mindful of time in order to give a fair and consistent assessment opportunity for all learners. So with ones like that, it is slightly flexible, but we would obviously look to stick to the timings, and would certainly stick to the overall timing to give the learner the opportunity to meet the assessment criteria.
Yeah, okay, cool. It was a business admin standard, that one, so
excellent. Hopefully I've answered that question then. Perfect. I mean, it's really worthwhile. You know, I can't stress enough how much you know, a practice or a mock would be useful to the learner to kind of run through it. You know, it's a challenging skill to present. You know, it's challenging for the best of us to present within certain timescales. So I would say, you know, the more practice you can give your learner to get everything in with that 15 minutes, you know, the better. And I assess on this standard, and what I usually do is look at the amount of slides that have been submitted to us prior to the assessment, and kind of understand, okay, you know, how many slides has the learner got to get through within that 15 minutes. If it's 15 slides, it's roughly 1 minute per slide. If all of a sudden the learner's taken 10 minutes just to get through the first 5, you know, I'll give them a polite reminder, maybe try and move them on a little bit quicker in order to get through that particular presentation.
And on the flip side of taking too long, what would happen if the learner's presentation is below the time frame? I guess this comes down to the accuracy and the clarity of what's covered in terms of the criteria that they've got to go over.
Yeah. I mean, again, you know, it's not about quantity. So you can absolutely have a learner that has, you know, presented a robust project to you in 10 minutes, and then a further 15 minutes on Q&A has been, you know, completely adequate and enough time to give the learner the opportunity to attempt every single assessment criteria. So it really is learner dependent, and obviously difficult to say, but what I would say is, you know, our assessors are trained on managing time as effectively as possible and allowing the learner to attempt you know, all the assessment criteria where the time allows as well.
And that comes down back round to preparation and the apprentice having the time to deliver a mock presentation to their tutor, their assessor, or yeah, someone, a nominated person at the employer, just so that they've had, one, the practice, and two, that they are in a position to be able to cover everything within that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, because this, for business admin in particular, it is an on-programme project. So what I would say is, you know, at the point in which you are starting to support the learner to embark on that project whilst on programme, it's really important at that point that you refer to the assessment criteria that need to be met, because in some ways, if you get to that presentation and, you know, it can be really difficult sometimes with the scope of some projects to allow the learner to meet everything, and by that point, you know, it just becomes a little bit more difficult. So the earlier that you can go through the assessment criteria with the learner to discuss, okay, let's think about what project you could do, let's think about you know, how we're going to ensure that this is going to give you the best opportunity to meet the assessment criteria. You know, if you can do that before they actually embark on the project, that would be the best case scenario.
Great stuff. So, and there are a couple of questions around the extensions of the window for submitting a project to companies with so many apprentices being on furlough. So, Laura, what's say, so if an apprentice has entered into the gateway window, what arrangements do we have in place if that learner has now been put on furlough leave?
We'd have to take it on a case-by-case basis. We have been told in principle that, you know, extensions to assessment windows will be considered. Whether that's an extension to the overall assessment window or whether that's an extension to a project submission timescale, which, you know, can be different to the overall assessment window, we'd need to have a look at that on an individual basis. So all I would advise is that if you felt that there may be a learner in that situation that due to furlough might not have access to the systems and things that they would need in order to complete the project, then just do let us know at the earliest opportunity, and we can certainly look into that for you.
Okay, so any specific questions on that do come directly to your employer engagement manager or one of the employer engagement team, and that applies to anything in terms of the assessment window or around methods of assessment that can be applied for those that are in a position to be able to be assessed whilst at home. There have been a few questions about specifics around delivering remote observations for apprentices working from home, team leading, customer service specialist. Again, that's something that Sarah, I know you've had to ask that question. We'd need to understand the specifics of that apprentice's position. So if they are working from home, we'll need to work out the logistics of being able to do that observation remotely, if it's at all possible, given the EQA's response to alternative assessment methods. And we'd need to clearly understand how we would be able to put that in place for that particular learner and that assessment plan. Okay, so there are still lots of questions coming through. We're going over time anyway, so Mike, do you want to pick up the final parts around the submissions, and then we'll see where we are when we've covered that bit, and maybe dive into a couple of more questions if everyone's happy to hang around.
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. Yeah. Okay, so as I mentioned, the next bit for this is actually submitting your forms to Highfield. Now, Highfield use, most of you are aware, but Highfield use Dropbox. This is our preferred method to use to submit documentation to us. However, this isn't the only way you can submit documentation to us. So we've come up in the past where many firewalls on people's systems don't allow Dropbox to work. If that is the case, please speak to your employer engagement team, speak to your BDM, let them know that obviously Dropbox isn't going to work for you. We can then come up with different alternative methods for you. Dropbox great because a link is provided per learner, which is provided at the time of registration. So you know that once you've got that Dropbox link back through to you, you know that your learner has now been registered with Highfield. You can also use the Highfield dashboard to be able to track your learner throughout the whole endpoint assessment stages as well. So Dropbox is a secure place to obviously upload your documents to Highfield. Once they are uploaded to us, they can only be viewed by Highfield or people that have permission to view these. So you'll probably notice that actually when you upload documents to the Dropbox, that you can't see what you have uploaded to us. This is purely for GDPR reasons. You can then see that the document has been uploaded to us, but nobody else can see what that is. What we would recommend is that documents are uploaded individually. However, you can upload supporting folders. So if you were to turn a folder, zip a folder, you can then upload the full zip folder to Highfield. However, individual documents are probably the best way to do it. If you believe that you've uploaded documents that actually shouldn't be there, you've uploaded them in error, please let your employer engagement team know, as we'll then look to remove the documents from that Dropbox folder. So as you can see on the screen there's a few benefits of using Dropbox. So it is very simple to use. It is GDPR safe. There is a link per learner rather than a group, which means it's a lot more secure, especially when it comes around to the submission of a learner's portfolio or their project. You know that you can then see that that portfolio or project is being uploaded to that learner-specific Dropbox. We can then access that at the other side. So Highfield do receive a confirmation email for each document that is uploaded to the Dropbox folder. So you can be assured that whenever you do upload a document to us, that you then don't have to call us, you don't have to email us to say, have you received it yet? Please be assured that we will receive any document that you upload to us. The assessor at our side will then have direct access to the Dropbox folder, so there is no messing around with downloading documents once you've uploaded them for us to provide to the assessors. They will have direct access to the documents that you have uploaded to us, for example, the portfolio and the projects. The last benefit of this is that it can take large documents, so MP4s can be uploaded. So when we're looking at the portfolios, obviously some portfolios are larger than others, and there are quite a few documents that need to be uploaded, or files such as MP4s. So the Dropbox folder is very large and it can accept many documents, so please don't be worried about uploading too much to us. Okay, Adam, so that's probably my section, the final section over, so I'm going to pass back over to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, fab. So Mike, did you just mention about submission of audio recordings and videos in terms of size? Are there any size limits on the or volume limits on the volume of data that can be uploaded?
There isn't, no. So that is one of the beauties of Dropbox, is that it doesn't matter what size the document is that you're uploading, Dropbox will be able to take it. We also do a bit of a cleansing exercise as well. So once, for example, gateway documentation has been uploaded to the Dropbox, we then delete it from the folder, which obviously for GDPR reasons, but also it generates a bit more space within there as well.
Great stuff. And for those not familiar with Dropbox, is there an opportunity for us to demonstrate that to a provider?
Unfortunately, not on the webinar today. However, if
not today.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, please contact the employer engagement team. What we can do, we can set up dummy Dropbox folders that you can then trial the access. You can make sure that it does get past your firewalls on your systems, and obviously that you can actually upload documents to us. Feel free, we can test that at any point.
Smashing. And I've got one on OneFile as well, actually. Using OneFile for the OneFile EPA section, is it acceptable for a provider to allow us access to OneFile?
Laura, this may be a question that might be best answered by you. Is that okay?
Hi there. So access to OneFile, we have looked into this. We did have some discussions with OneFile actually a while ago around what we would need to be able to access this e-portfolio directly. Unfortunately, at this present moment in time, we're not able to accept portfolios through OneFile directly for our assessors to log into. This is for several reasons, really. Because it's a third-party system that we would have access to, there was no for sure way of kind of locking down individual learners' work that we could just pull off easily into like a zip file and then upload for our assessors. It would mean basically that we wouldn't be able to control the access for our assessors into that system. So for a number of reasons, we made the decision, and unless things changed, that we weren't going to access third-party e-portfolios, including OneFile.
And I think that's a specific conversation for us to have, isn't it, on a provider basis. There's such a wide range of e-portfolio systems out there that are accessible, that depending on
I think that's the thing, Adam, is that you know, that there's just so many. You know, if there was one e-portfolio that everybody used, you know, we would be able to kind of you know, train up our assessors to use that particular system. I think the issue is that there's just that many, they all do different things, and there's just an uncertainty in some of them about being able to lock down evidence that's provided for endpoint assessment, because obviously what we need to be able to show to our regulators is the piece of evidence that we assessed at the time. And unfortunately, when we'd looked into the different systems, there was no kind of robust way of being able to do that.
Okay, thank you. And with some really positive feedback there from Rachel on Dropbox as well. It's good to know that works. It's really flexible, and that's the reason why we've decided to use it. It's really very straightforward to engage with. So thank you for that. There's still stacks of questions coming through. I think are we 15 minutes over now, guys? So I think we'll maybe try to answer a couple more questions. Are you happy to do that, Laura?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So Jenny, I'd benefit from a Dropbox demo, particularly if we're going to be doing EPA remotely going forward. Yeah, absolutely fine. Again, drop a line to your employer engagement manager, and we'll be able to jump on a video call and demo that for you. We can actually demonstrate any of the systems remotely. So if there's anything that you guys need to see or have instruction on, we'd be more than happy to organise a video call with you and your teams, so you can all jump on and get the information and real direct instruction on how to use it. So one specifically for BA, do you have any mock exams other than the current one? Learners' feedback is that the exam that they take is not written out like the mock. So it's an interesting question there, Kim, around mock assessments. The team are cycling through essentially past papers, live exams as and when they become available. So you will find that the range of mock assessments that are available to you will extend over a period of time. And I know that our team that write the exams and the mocks, where requested, are adding to the range of mock exams that are available. Please do also note, everyone, that mock exam papers are available on the Highfield Works mock assessment system. So again, I don't want to stress enough, but please do just drop a line to our employer engagement team and we can give you instructions on how to access our mocks. We have had previous webinars that we've delivered that have covered that and that we've demoed. So do please have a look on our YouTube channel for other instructionals on our process. Let's just see if there's one more that I can dig out from this this long list. The ones that I don't pick up immediately, we will come back to you on after the webinar. It will be over the next day or two, depending on individual workloads. Okay, I think what we'll do, we'll close there. We've been on quite some time, and there are some very specific questions that we need to answer for you. So we'll certainly get round to them later on. So yeah, thank you for attending today's webinar. So thanks Laura, Mike and Amy for supporting it. I think everyone that's attended will have found this to be a huge help. A copy of the slides will be emailed out to all attendees by Amy within the week. We will plan to share the recording of the webinar on the YouTube channel. Just have a look on there and search for the Highfield group. That will be there in the next few weeks, maybe even sooner. Keep an eye on our social media channels for a notification when that's been released, or alternatively, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just turn on the alerts to receiving the notifications when the video has been uploaded. If you would, as a reminder to just please take a bit of time to complete the short survey that will pop up after the webinar. I know we've been on for quite some time now, but if you would do that, your feedback is gratefully received and does help to shape what we deliver in the future. There is a question on there about what you'd like us to deliver on next, so always a good one, and we'd appreciate any specific standards or areas in terms of assessment that you'd like us to cover. Do drop onto that. There are a number of webinars happening at the moment in relation to our remote delivery solution. So we have something called Qualify at Home that covers remote delivery of some work-based learning qualifications, compliance. It includes details on e-learning and importantly too, remote invigilation. So remote invigilation of exams, including functional skills and also in relation to endpoint assessment. So do jump onto that or pop me an email over, and I'd be happy to talk you guys through that. Details on screen, and again you'll receive our contact details after when you get the slides. So I think that's enough from me. So thank you again for your time. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate the fact that you're all working from home and no doubt are incredibly busy. So if there's anything that you do need, please do let us know. We are here to help, and we are still working on your behalf. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks from everyone here at Highfield.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Thank you.